Now, there's been a warning from the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin could cause the next financial crash. In a speech this week, Sir John Cunliffe said a collapse in the price of cryptocurrencies to as low as zero is certainly a plausible scenario, and that there was a possibility of contagion. Well, let's talk to the finance writer and comedian, Dominic Frisby. Dominic, I don't understand. The first thing about cryptocurrencies seems like someone's just turned money into some sort of Nintendo game and people are making loads of money on it. What's going on?
Well, sorry, there's an echo on my phone. I'm just going to turn it off. We've had Bitcoin now for 12 years. So if we're still at the point where we have to explain to people what Bitcoin is, I mean, I think those who are prepared to understand it are going to understand it, and those who are never going to understand it are never going to understand it. But it doesn't matter if you don't understand it. It's like a car. You don't need to understand how the combustion engine works in order to use it. But it's clear from this speech by the Bank of England that Cunliffe has no understanding of how Bitcoin works. He described Bitcoin as unbacked. Now, that's a ludicrous thing to say. If there's a currency that's unbacked, it's the pound. The pound used to be a pound of sterling silver. It hasn't been backed by anything since, well, we came off the gold standard in 1914, then went back off it again and came back off it in, I think, 31 or 32. It hasn't been backed by anything for, 90 years. And so that's the first ludicrous assumption. The next ludicrous assumption is this idea that crypto that can go to zero. It just can't. There's just too much computer power involved. It's like saying that gold will go to zero. Gold might fall in price, but it's never going to go to zero.
I don't understand cryptocurrencies, and I don't own any because I don't trust things I don't understand. But in terms of the
do you own sterling?
I don't own much, to be honest, Dominic. I've got a cat.
Well, none of us own as much as we'd like, but you do realise you're being paid in an asset that is losing roughly 10% of its purchasing power every year because of the Bank of England's policy. And the Bank of England has got the chutzpah to go around lecturing other people on how to conduct their monetary procedures. It's like the hippopotamus lecturing the cat on how to tread softly. It's insanity, and it's deeply hypocritical.
But in terms of cryptocurrency...
Yeah, and let me ask you another question, Alex. Yeah. Let me ask you another question.
Oh, I like
Do you understand how fiat money is created, how the pound is created?
I have no idea about these things. I'm going to be honest.
OK, and yet you still use it.
Yes, do. Don't have much choice.
So why do people apply this same logic to Bitcoin?
But in terms of Bitcoin, I mean, there is one country in the world, is it El Salvador, who is going to make cryptocurrencies part of their national currency offer. But is there a risk, where you have this market that, is now quite long established, and there are people like me who don't involve themselves with it and don't understand it, perhaps it's going to grow and I'm going to be caught up in it unwittingly at some point in my life. But is there a risk where you have a brand new currency that's evolved away from the sort of traditional streams and traditional regulations of other currencies and financial transactions, that it could precipitate some sort of global financial shockwave?
There are two questions there. The first assumption you're making in that question, and the Cunliffe is making the same assumption, is that regulation somehow protects against financial crashes. It doesn't. There was loads of regulation in place in the lead up to 2008. It was not enforced. More regulation does not protect people. Mother Nature has invented a very good regulator. It is called bankruptcy. And bankruptcy and fear of it is a far more effective regulator than the FCA. So that's the first question. The assumption that regulation prevents crashes is gravely mistaken. It doesn't. The second question is, how much risk is there in crypto land? There is vast amounts. When I last looked, there were more than 12,000 different cryptocurrencies. Some of them are scams. Some of them are just sort of idle technological experiments. it is the Wild West out there. It's a new technology. It's like .com was in the mid to late 90s or even 2000. This market is highly volatile. It's full of speculators. It has these huge booms and busts for two reasons. Firstly, it's a new technology, and new technology always attracts investment mania. But secondly, it's a new technology which is money. So that makes it sort of, if Marvel was designing the bubble superhero, it would be cryptocurrencies. It's an extremely speculative space, and you have to go into it with your eyes wide open and caveat emptor if you're going to speculate in it. The other question I would have a go at Cunliffe about is he drew the comparison between subprime and crypto. What you need to understand about Bitcoin is it is a form of cash. It is not debt. On the other hand, subprime was a debt crisis caused by excess debt, bad debt held by bad actors. The comparison is not valid. One is cash, one is debt, and you would expect the Bank of England, of all people, to understand the difference.
Dominic, thank you so much for coming on. Do you know what? I think you should compose a tune, I love your music, by the way, explaining things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to numbskulls like me.